So to be clear, my advice, your exam is going to be on the 21st, okay? Except that you can't see because of course not. Your exam is going to be on the 21st, which means you want to have your study done on the 19th, okay? Which means that you can come to class on the 20th, right? The day before the exam, and we can just do our study session, in which I will go over and give answers to the practice exam. I won't post the answers to the practice exam. I will go over the answers to the practice exam. If you are desperate to know the answer for the practice exam before you come to this session, guess what? Check out the previous year's recorded lectures. I'm not changing that practice exam. I worked hard on that practice exam. It's a good practice exam. I might change the actual exam. Also, let's talk about and most importantly, let's talk about the mechanics that we're going to do for this upcoming exam, which is the main, so if I recall correctly, so if you recall, I basically said that we would do I was talking about doing the flipped not the flipped, but the two-stage examination. So do people want to me to revisit that and give? So the flipped examination is as follows, and I've got it written down in the syllabus here, so that's why I'm going over here. It says that the idea for this is that you will take a regular exam for the first 70 minutes or so. Okay, your lab is 100. Your lab is an hour and 50 minutes. So 2/3 of that time is dedicated to solo exam. It will be worth 80% of your grade, of your exam grade. So you think about that basically, if it's out of 100 points, this is how I will be grading it. Your exam's is going to be worth 80 exam points, and the group portion is going to be worth 20 exam points. Now, before you all freak out about group work, let me just simply say, here's my guarantee. Your group exam, the group grade will not lower your grade. It can only raise it. So in other words, if you basically turned in a blank piece of paper, if your group turned in a blank piece of paper for your group work, then you will all be going off your solo score for all 100 points. That's basically how it works. It's fine. So it will not hurt your grade. I know, and I do that because I don't want students to be all worried about not getting a group or not getting into the right group. Also, this helps balance out the students who may not be able to make it to the exam or whatnot. Okay, now the portion, so that is done alone. Just don't, the main thing is that when you're done with the exam, normally you would leave if you're done with the exam. In this case, don't leave. Just, stay and chill or do what you can. And then immediately after we split into groups. Group sizes are 3 or 4. You do 3 students or 4 students. There should not be an issue with getting into 3s or 4s and then leaving with people, just groups of 2, a group of 2 people. You do not have to form your groups beforehand. You do not have to have your group in the same lab as you, since you're both in the same room, right? You're both labs are in the same room. So you don't have to work with the CP. So you can work with whoever. I don't care. Okay. So what we will do is that we will provide you with 1 exam copy per group. This will, your exam will probably be on the exam itself. Your solo exam will be electronic, whereas I'll probably do a paper for the group portion just to make it easier. I'll get more details about that. But what's the difference between the 2 exams? Well, and what's the point of this? Again, as I've explained, this kind of channels the whole, there's no time you're more primed to learn than during the exam, because there's stakes involved. So this kind of leverages that. If you've got the answers right, then you can move on to the group portion and truly master it by teaching it to somebody else or confirming with others that it worked. For those of you who are pretty sure you messed something up, it gives you the chance to not only get that immediately corrected, but to get point value out of the correction. Okay. Okay, now so that is the advantage. Basically, it provides a nice buffer. What I've done in the past is that so I've tried two different things last semester. One is that I tried giving, is that I gave the questions on, I gave basically the same exam as both as an individual exam and a group exam. So same questions on both of them. Students didn't find that particularly useful. So second exam, what I did is that I gave students I moved some of the more difficult questions to the, so if a question had like a difficult question had two parts, I would do part A on the individual and part B on the group to allow that, and move some other subsections of that onto the group exam. I'm still hammering out the kinks of this. Okay. The disadvantage I found of this is that there's a strict pencils down time. Okay, which I know it is not great for some students. Okay. You don't work well with a hard time limit. The other thing that doesn't work well is that if you need an extended time accommodation due to DRS, or if you need to take your exam with DRS, then you could potentially miss out because you would want to schedule your. That being said, if you need to schedule your exam with DRS, this is the way that I've done that. Some students have done it, and it may be a bit tricky since the exam starts at 9 a.m. The group portion of the exam starts at 10:10. So if you need to be with DRS, what you can do is you can schedule your exam, earlier at DRS, take the solo exam, and then come over for the group exam, and do that, and do that. That's no problem. So that is it. And of course, if you've got that kind of situation, we don't have to talk about that here. Let's talk about that like over email or over Zoom. Okay. So see if that works out for you. Okay. Again, though, if you can't take it, it's not going to hurt you. And if we do have like a critical mass of students who need to take it with DRS, I mean, I could toss you into a group together, but at the same time, that would also conflate matters because it would limit your choice as to who you could group up with. So again, if you do have an issue with this, please let me know. That is the other thing. I am very conscious of any criticism I get for this class, I take seriously. And I don't mean that as like bad criticism, like I'm doing this wrong. I'm saying I have a suggestion that will make that, I think your class, if you do this, will be better. Tell me. I want this class to be the best it can be. That's why I try new things like this. I tried this last semester. I want to do it again to see how it works out. Now that I've done it once and kind of ironed out the kinks. Okay. So is there any concerns about like doing the exam in this format? The exam will be sized to fit into the hour and 10-minute slot, by the way. Okay. And again, it will enable you to do this. The weighting of the group portion will be 80% solo, 20% group. So that can really help your grade. Like if you only get an 80 on the exam, 80% of 80 is 62 points, and then you get 20. It helps your grade a little bit, 82, but there's not much, but it helps even more if you've got a lower grade. You only get a 50 on the regular exam, and you get in a really good group, suddenly that brings your grade up to a 70, which is passing. So it can help significantly for those who are worried there. So it can help, kind of like that square root curve with diminishing returns. But I mean, again, I've been very flexible with different things for this exam. I've allowed corrections on questions. I've allowed stuff. Now, that being said, I should mention a couple things about the exam, just kind of schedule. I do 2 exams and a final exam. The first exam generally is more difficult for students because of various reasons. Not because I think the content is more difficult, but because it's your first data structures exam. It's also occurring in week 6, which is a lot when other midterms may be occurring. And so you may be studying for other stuff. The workload starts increasing in your other classes around that time. It's just scheduled not that great. I find that the grade is literally average for that around. So we're talking like 70, 75 average for the exam, big one. Okay. It's sometimes jump to basically like to 69.7 sometimes, but it's not a very low, but it's not like low, it's not high, it's average, which is where I should technically be aiming. Exam 2, I've had around an 89% average on that exam multiple times. That exam, if you get an A, and again, I don't curve down. If everybody gets an A in the class, I'm ecstatic. I don't care about if too many students get A's, if y'all earn the A's legitimately. I'm not going to curve you all up to A's, is what I'm saying. And so those generally help. So I've had a student who completely bombed their first exam and did well in the second exam and third exam. They ended up with an A- in the course overall, because that first exam bombing does hurt. But, when I see significant improvement over the semester, and when I say bombing, I'm talking about like 40 on the exam. And, so as long as you're making improvement, that's what I care about. Okay, resources during the exam. Let me go ahead and stop sharing. Let me go ahead and pause sharing for a second. I'm going to actually pull up the exam itself so that you can read the resources for yourself. Let's see. Build, zoom in like crazy. Exam 1, okay, there we go. And resume share. Those are the instructions for the exam. Feel free to photograph them. I will send them out in an email, so don't feel the need to do whatever. This is what's going to appear in the exam and beforehand. You are allowed to, you can complete the exam on your own devices or on the lab computer. I don't care where you do the exam, just get it done. You're allowed to use any coding environment you want, IntelliJ, Eclipse, NetBeans, Atom, VS Code, Vim, Emacs, I don't care. If it works for you, it works for me. The exam is open note. It's on paper, any amount of paper in any form, including the textbook. Okay. Notes can also be electronic notes stored on your computer or in your personal cloud, be it OneDrive, iCloud, don't care. Okay. Students may access any resource on the internet that is linked from Canvas. That is the important bit. That is what makes this is the walls of the exam resources. So my lecture videos, totally good. The recordings of this class, totally good. The GitHub repo, totally good. Going on Stack Overflow, no. Bad. Don't do that. Everybody kind of get the idea? I'm basically saying I've got to have some limit. If you want the Java documentation, probably okay. Just ask the TA about that. But I mean, honestly, you should just probably download that in advance. And honestly, also, if you use IntelliJ or Eclipse, it's kind of going to be already there, being able to open those class files. Okay. So everybody clear? Any questions on the exam resources? Does anybody have any amendments that they might suggest for that? If you do think of one, please let me know. I might have missed something. Okay. Oh yes, and if you need a calculator, you won't. That's okay. I mean, that's an app on your computer that's not connected to the internet. That's perfectly okay. For questions 1 and 2, those will require you to draw. It is perfectly acceptable for you to take a photo with your phone and either upload it to your computer or whatnot and do whatever you need to get that photo to me, or even email that to me. Similar with any kind of Scratch work you do. You can take a photo of that and do that. In fact, I try to make sure that the last question on the exam is basically a open file upload that you can upload any file you feel need, such as your Java source code, in case you worry that the code block, the text box that you put your stuff in is just not being nice to you. Okay. If there's no other questions, I will link that final exam, not the final exam, the first exam, practice exam soon. I think it's already available in the files field on Canvas. So if you look under, if you can access files, you should be able to get to it. It's going to be in the sidebar. Is files there in the sidebar? Yeah, then your practice exam should be there already if you want to find it there. I will send out a link in the email though, if you want to get that. I do make the exam, and just a note, I make the practice exam much longer, much harder, with a time limit of two, and the idea here is that you would have 2 hours to complete that exam. Okay. Okay, so if you can, the reason being is that if you feel like you've got a handle on the practice exam, you should be confident about the real exam. Will you have to a lab to complete the same week of the exam? Kind of, but it will be fine because again, you'll be working here in that one. That one is the maze one, and that one is one of my favorites to do. Don't worry, it works out. Okay. All right.